So, Jerry, welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everybody. So, we were chatting earlier about, and I love bringing you on the show just to talk about nightmare tenant issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you don't get a whole lot because you even though you got a pretty big portfolio and you manage a lot of people's properties, but you were talking about trash earlier. Just
Right.
people moving in and moving out and just leaving a massive amount of stuff. So what are you seeing out there as tenants move out and move on to other properties or move and that sort of thing?
Well, and I was just saying that it blows my mind that you think the tenants that come in your office, here's my keys,
Mm-hmm.
here's my forwarding address for my security deposit,
Mm-hmm.
that you would go to the house and you get the property that you gave them.
Right, yeah, beautiful, broom swept, all that kind of stuff.
Maid
right?
serviced out,
Yeah.
carpet clean.
Yeah.
I mean, we just got one this past week, and it just blew my mind that, Junk King's out there right now cleaning up. I would imagine about $600 to $800 worth of garbage that they left behind.
Stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and they gave us their new address to forward their security deposit.
Well, so once you get all the trash out and then assess any other damages, you can forward them the invoice, right, for the other items. So that's funny.
And that's always the first step for any house that we get back is that if there's trash, just get whoever your junk removal person is.
Mm-hmm.
We use Junk King. I think you guys use Junk King too. We get them out so we get a kind of like a clean palette. And like now we can see, okay, what's really wrong with the house.
Yeah.
When there's a lot of trash, it's really difficult to see.
Yeah.
The other thing that we actually come across since you were asking me is abandonment of homes.
Okay.
Meaning a tenant is still willing to pay rent, right? Let's just say they bought a new house.
Okay.
And they're like, we'll still pay rent, but we're not going to live there. And you go there, it's because they don't want to ruin their credit and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But you always want to actually get the house back.
Yeah.
Because what if there's a water leak or
Right.
something?
Oh, absolutely.
Or a fire or, something goes wrong or it gets broken into. So we've actually had a lot where tenants get mad. It's like, we're still paying the rent. You can't go in there. It's like, no, like you've turned off the utilities. You've abandoned the house.
Mm-hmm.
We charge them for the reletting fee, the rekey fee, and all the different fees. And then we try to rent out again as fast as possible. You never want to leave a house completely abandoned, even if they're paying rent.
Oh, yeah, you don't want to leave it empty. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. Let's say tenant calls you, says, hey, I ran into this when I was managing my own properties, where they had bought a house, it's being built. Hey, we're not sure when it's going to be ready, and it's ready, let's say, 2 or 3 months early. Is there, and I'm not an expert on property law as it relates to tenant laws, is there an option there to say, hey, can you go ahead and get all your kind of stuff out, essentially move out, and continue to pay the lease until I've got it rented from somebody else? And we may be able to get you out of that, let's say, 1 or 2 months early.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's our goal is that, hey, get your stuff out, let us release it. You're still responsible for the reletting fee.
Okay.
But that still probably ends up being cheaper than if you were to pay the rest of the
right,
months.
yeah.
So it's really not a lot, but still better, and you're not ruining your credit. But the idea is to get it re-rented out as quickly as possible. And by law, you cannot collect from two people the same month's rent.
Right.
But you are able to charge a reletting fee. So
Okay.
it's not collecting rent. They're just paying the reletting fee.
Right. Whenever I had tenants that would do that, say, hey, look, we can both work on this, or we can stick to the letter of the lease, which says you are going to pay the rent on this until such and such a date. But hey, let's see if we can get another tenant in here. We can release you of the liability. You can go off and no charge to your credit, that sort of thing. So. And it's just if they're willing to play ball, right?
And utilities is really the most important thing. Like, if you get a house that, you still got cast iron pipes on you, they turn off the water. Next thing you know, you come back and turn on utilities on and none of your water works. Right? We had that, again, recently where a tenant moved out. We had no maintenance. We finally went out there because we were checking the property next door, and he's been gone, and the yards was like overgrown. They didn't have HOA, so we never knew about it, but he just kept on paying this rent. And then we were like, oh, crap, this guy's been gone for a long time, but he just kept paying it.
Yeah. He's been gone for 8 months now. You're like, hey, buddy. So when you called him, did he call you back? Or, hey, man, where you been? We noticed the house kind of got tall grass. What's going on, bud?
And usually these are people, they're like, oh, we moved out. I'm like, okay, thanks for letting us know.
And you say, yeah, we know that because we went by the house.
Yeah.
And there's a den of snakes in the front yard, and there's deer in the backyard. You've turned this into a woodland paradise now.
Right.
So what is it? Yeah, that's funny. So, well, I mean, it's good they up and leave in the night, but at least they're writing a check, right? Instead of
again, the check, and when you talk to some owners, it's like, well, they're still paying rent. It's like, well, they turned off utilities and they're not cutting the grass either.
Yeah.
So, I mean, rent is great, but they're not paying for the other items to
Right.
to maintain the property, which is the other goal too. That's your asset.
Yeah, that's funny. You hear more stories of a tenant moving out in the middle of the night, and then no rent check comes around the first, and you're like, wait a second, and then you figure out they've kind of gone and moved on, which is one whole other thing. But that's funny. We haven't run into a lot of they've moved out and they just keep paying the rent, and then we get the HOA notice.
We've gotten that. We've gotten sublets.
Oh, wow.
Also, where we're like, okay, we know you moved out, but for some reason we're still getting rent checks. Like, we're pretty sure you're not living there. So who's there?
Yeah.
And that comes, maybe a problem during eviction time or whatever.
Yeah, because I could see a scenario where they're paying them, then they're not paying you, and you're like, well, this isn't your house, bud.
We actually had when someone sublet it, and then the new person, which we had no idea about, paid a security deposit to the other person. And then when they moved out, they're like, hey, where's our security deposit? We're like, what are you talking about? We never got a security deposit.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we paid the other person. Like, well, that's between you and them.
Yeah, it sounds like you need to call that guy.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's going to get right on that. There was and I'm sure it's still happening in Houston, where houses would be listed for sale, like on MLS. And folks would go on to Craigslist and list them for rent, take security deposit and first month rent, and they're trying to move in. And then here's this real estate agent that goes and keys in. It's vacant house, right? Yeah. So CSS lets them in, and they're like, who are you people? Well, we're renting this house. And the agent's like, no, you're not, because I'm the listing agent.
Right.
Like, what is going on here?
No, we actually had a fraud one get posted on Facebook now, too.
Oh, no kidding.
Just last week. Last
wow.
week. That was the first one we've seen on Facebook.
Was it one of y'all's properties you were selling, or one that you were leasing?
Leasing.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Oh, yeah, send us our check. So make sure you're dealing with the actual owner's representative for those of you who are renting property. That's hilarious. So let's say I'm a new investor, Jerry, and this is Jerry Todd with Property Care. I'm a new investor. I've gone to some weekend seminar somewhere, and I'm going to be a landlord. I'm going to be a millionaire in 10 minutes. That's what that's the guy on stage promised me. And now I want to be a landlord. What are the, let's say, top 4 or 5 mistakes that you see new landlords make?
Well, let's get your mindset right. Okay. Let's not be a landlord.
Okay.
Let's be an investor.
Oh, wait. You mean I don't want to be a professional landlord?
Right. You don't want to manage your own properties. That's being Absolutely. A landlord. You want to be investing in properties and spending your time investing in properties. First mistake is on the rehab. Let's not, let's just do the bare minimum.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Doing the bare minimum attracts the worst, right? If you don't have a clean property, people who's willing to accept trash are, maybe trash.
Yeah,
also at the same time.
I agree with it. I mean, I agree.
If someone's willing to accept the dump, what do you really think this person is like, right? Secondly, is putting in just a bad tenant in general, right? So you got rehab. I mean, every step of the way, there's so many mistakes that you can make.
What's amazing to me is how many new landlords, new investors they'll take a little shortcut here, they'll take a little shortcut here, and what they don't realize, almost like the field of engineering, when you stack all of those little shortcuts up, it turns out it just makes that deal so much more worse, right? Yeah. I mean, it's just like, we're going to shortcut the rehab, we're going to take the first tenant that shows up with a check. I mean, it's all these things, and then they say, oh, well, being a real estate investor doesn't work. And you're like, no, you just did it wrong.
Yeah, you just did it wrong. And then who's the house buyers comes up and buys it.
That's right. And then I come and buy it from you, right? So how do folks get in touch with you?
You can reach us at 713-489-7653 or send us an email at info@propertycarehouston.com.
So it's info@propertycarehouston.com. Jerry Todd has been my guest with Property Care. Thanks so much for coming.
All right. Have a good one, guys.